safe so they can read from their holy scriptures and practice and educate in safety. But today is a moment that we are focusing on a particular Canadian community, and however complicated the world is outside our borders, we are Canada, we are Canadians, and we stand together with all Canadians in safety. I want to pass the microphone to one of my colleagues, Julie DeBruzen, who has done tremendous leadership work on this, to say a few words before Gary. Julie.
Alors, merci. Comme vous avez entendu, aujourd'hui, c'est une journée importante. Nous parlons de comment on va protéger la communauté juive au Canada, mais aussi, et on parle aussi de comment on continue avec le projet de loi contre la haine qui va aider pour tous les Canadiens. Parce que tous les Canadiens devraient sentir comme ils peuvent aller pour leur place de prière en sécurité. Mais en ce moment, quand on a vu qu'est-ce qui est arrivé à Toronto avec 3 synagogues attaquées, c'est un moment spécialement pour la communauté juive où il ressent, que nous ressentons, que nous avons besoin de plus pour nous protéger. Alors, c'est une journée importante et je suis tellement contente que nous sommes ici avec le ministre de Sécurité publique, Gary Anandasangaree, parce qu'il a une annonce importante que je pense répond bien à ce que nous entendons des communautés juives. Et je pense que c'est une journée importante pour comment nous allons à l'avant. Merci.
Merci, Julie. Merci, Evan. Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to thank my colleagues for being here, particularly those who are members of the Jewish community who have, for the past several years, have had very difficult times in their communities, making sure that their communities are safe, their families are safe, and they themselves are safe. The most important job of any government is to ensure its citizens are safe. When a house of worship is staffed by gunfire, it is a sign that something is seriously wrong. It happened 3 times last week to 3 synagogues in the Greater Toronto area. Bayit Toronto, Temple Emmanuel, and Sharei Shamayim were attacked by those with guns, and this incident could have been much worse. The impact of it could have been much worse. However, we cannot underestimate what this has done to these communities. Some of our colleagues had a chance to visit 2 of these synagogues, and I know Evan went to Temple Emmanuel last week, and we saw how impacted the communities were. Those who go to those synagogues, those who go there every single week to practice their faith, to be with their families, to bring their children for school. And it's had a profound impact, not just on those parishioners, but Jewish Canadians across Canada. Canada's Jewish community is anxious, fearful, and those feelings are quite justified. These were assaults on the Jewish community and the right of Jewish Canadians to live and pray in safety. When you attack a synagogue, you attack all places of worship. When you attack a single group of Canadians, and in this case, Jewish Canadians, you attack all Canadians. You attack the very fabric of our society. The federal government will use every tool available to confront anti-Semitic violence and hatred and protect places of worship. Federal agencies, including the RCMP, are supporting Toronto and York Regional Police to identify the perpetrators of these crimes and to make them accountable for their actions. Make no mistake, they will be held to account. These attacks have not come out of the blue. They're just the latest in a string of anti-Semitic incidents. Since I became minister last year, every time I've had the chance to meet with Jewish leaders and Jewish community members, they've told me of heightened fears in their community and highlighted specific examples of violence and vandalism. The bullet holes that we saw last week, in one case, there were 3 separate walls. First, the door, the second set of doors, and the third set of doors. The bullets actually penetrated, in some cases, to all 3 sets of those doors and those walls. Imagine if there are people that late in those synagogues, what the consequences of that have been. The deep concern about the safety of their institutions, synagogues, community centers, and camps, and other facilities have been echoed across Canada, from Halifax to Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, Winnipeg, Vancouver. This is one of the reasons why we brought Bill C-9, and it is now going through the House. And it's a critical piece of legislation that will ensure the safety and security of our institutions. It is my job to ensure that federal measures remain responsive to the risk on the ground, and the Jewish community has made those clear to me. These shootings make them even clearer. As a government, we must respond. So today, I'm announcing a $10 million investment in the Canada Community Security Program, the CCSP, to assist the Jewish community in enhancing security at its institutions. This includes synagogues, community centers, schools, daycares, and overnight camps. Money will be provided to centralized organizations in Toronto and Montreal, who will then work with local Jewish organizations to determine specific, urgent projects to fund. I've had the opportunity to visit the the Jewish Security Network in Toronto, as well as the Federation CJA in Montreal. These are incredible coordinating efforts undertaken by the Jewish community in these respective cities. They bring together institutions, and they do support the security needs of their members. And it is a very important step in ensuring the safety and security of Jewish institutions. For funding in other parts of Canada, organizations should contact public safety directly to discuss urgent projects. I want to just highlight that the CCSP has supported over 140 organizations since its inception in 2024. 70% of the funding have been directed to the Jewish community. The CCSP is a flexible program that accepts application year-round. Given that Passover is coming soon, I urge anyone who wishes to apply for funding to do so. I recognize that some have been frustrated at the process of these funding applications, and I assure you that I'm working with the Department of Public.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is based
Of the program that will ensure greater accessibility to the Jewish communities in Toronto and across Canada. I want you to know your government stands with you against anti-Semitism, hatred, and violence in all its forms. All of us here stand with you. These shootings have touched a deep nerve both in your community and in the country at large. I hope this investment shows you that we are serious. Law enforcement will track down those responsible, but as a country, we have to deal with the hate that drove whoever fired the shots at your houses of worship, your sacred places. Communities cannot live in fear. That is not the Canadian way, and that is not what Canadians want. Thank you for being here. I look forward to your questions.
Minister, the funding today that you're offering essentially helps Jewish communities fortify their synagogues or their houses of worship. It doesn't address the issue of the people committing the crimes in the first place. What do you tell the Jewish members of the Jewish community and other communities who are under attack about what you're going to do to actually stop these crimes from happening as opposed to helping them barricade against them?
Look, there are a number of measures that are going through the House, as you're aware. Bill C-14, which deals with bail reform as well as sentencing. Bill C-16, which works to support victims' rights as well as administration of justice. Bill C-9, which is a critical piece of legislation that will ensure that symbols of hate as well as attacks at places of gathering of particular communities are codified in law as criminal acts. There's been a number of investments that we made, including 1,000 new RCMP as well as 1,000 new CBSA personnel. This speaks to a suite of changes that we have made available to law enforcement to ensure that they have better tools to do their work. At the end of the day, this is an additional measure that will augment the supports we're already giving for infrastructure, but this is more towards coordination. So it will bring together, in Toronto, for example, over 200 institutions that may be under surveillance or some kind of vulnerability. Same thing in Montreal. There's over 65 entities that are being supported by the network in Montreal. So it is a critical step in ensuring that there's security coordination that will essentially monitor what's happening in these institutions.
How does it make you feel, the fact that you have to give more money to religious institutions to protect them, to fortify, it's quite literally that, in Canada in 2026?
I think Minister Solomon started off by saying that this is something that we shouldn't have to do. I go to my temple regularly. I never look to see who's there. I never look to see who is parked outside. I never look to see, I never worry about my safety or security. But I know that many, those who are going into synagogue, for example, are constantly worried. And look, they're oftentimes unable to even go there without that fear. But the resilience that I know that's in the Jewish community, and I've heard about the resilience, ensures that they do go there. They do at times go even if they are fearful. The responsibility of government is to ensure that first and foremost those who want to terrorize or seek to terrorize vulnerable communities, particularly the Jewish community, are held to account. But at the same time, we have to have practical solutions that will not only deter, but also enable communities to secure themselves.
Some of the groups that I spoke to expressed some frustration that this funding this program provides something in the way of 90 days of funding support. Can you give any assurances to those community groups that the additional funding you're announcing right now will allow them to basically fortify and provide that funding for 365 days a year?
So just to be clear, of the $10 million, we have $5 million going to Toronto, $2.5 million to Montreal, and the other $2.5 million towards other areas within Canada. What I can assure them is that these funds will be going out within days, and we're in discussions with these groups as to what the funding will cover. We will have more to say on the overall funding of the CCSP in the coming weeks, and also change and offer revised funding criteria for that. But let's be very clear, the funding that we're announcing today will be going out the door starting this week.
Conservatives have accused your government of politicizing violence abroad and kind of creating the conditions for these kinds of attacks on religious institutions here in Canada. What do you say to those accusations?
Canadians are looking for unity. The Jewish community is looking for unity, and they're looking for political leadership to work together. What we heard, and Mr. DeBruzen, myself, MP Church, and MP Maggie Chi, we were there last week at the synagogue. We were talking to other provincial colleagues as well as community leaders. And the clear message that they sent to us is, we don't want to hear governments divided. We don't want to hear political partisanship on this issue. What we want is unity. And I believe that as the federal government we're providing that leadership, we're providing that partnership, we're working very closely with the provincial government. Minister Kirchner and I talk regularly. We have regular discussions with Chief Demkew in Toronto, as well as with our law enforcement, who are in touch with both Toronto Police and York Regional Police. At the end of the day, what's required in this moment, where the world may be going through very difficult challenges, is for Canadians to come together and to ensure primarily the safety and security of its citizens.
Minister, today your government listed 5 more fentanyl precursors as controlled substances today, but not the animal tranquilizers that are contaminating fentanyl, which is something that jurisdictions in the UK and the US have done. May I ask why it doesn't include animal tranquilizers?
Look, we're going through the process of listing additional precursors. As you know, Bill C-12, which is now in the Senate, will enable faster listing of precursors. It's a tool that was sought in that legislation, and I'm absolutely confident that as the bill passes, we will have greater flexibility and greater speed in which these listings can take place in real time. When we met with the Five Eyes and the G7 over the last several months, there was commitment to have greater coordination. So as Europe and other countries take very important steps, we will follow, and similarly they follow, and we share information with them routinely.
The CBSA says that industry pressure is slowing action on tranquilizers and fentanyl. What industries are pressuring your government to not act on that?
So I would say the listing of the precursors are by Health Canada and not CBSA. CBSA enforces it, but ultimately it is Health Canada that does the listing, and as I indicated, Bill C-12 will provide the required tools for us to move much faster than we're able to do now.
Minister, gun control groups are concerned that there's been very little information about the guns used in Tumbler Ridge in the shootings. Have you been briefed by anyone about the guns that were used in those shootings?
Look, I have had a number of conversations with our CMP personnel and leadership in British Columbia. I have regular conversations with the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner here. What I can say is that they're undertaking a robust investigation where a number of questions, including the type of firearms that were used.
EVE Online is a
What do you think about the fact Canadians are still waiting to hear about basic information about that?
I believe what we have always said to the people of Tumbler Ridge is that there are a number of questions that will need to be answered. I said that in the House yesterday. We will work with the community. We will work with the opposition. We will work with Mr. Zimmer, who is the local representative. And we will work with law enforcement to make sure that those answers are there. As is, the government of British Columbia is undertaking a coroner's inquest. There's also an investigation on police conduct, which is routine in these circumstances that's taking place. And once those, and once the RCMP investigation is complete, we will have more to say.
We'll take one last question. Recently, the Conservatives have been pointing to 700 IRGC former members being in Canada. Yesterday in the House, I believe you disagree with that number, but didn't offer another number. So how many former members of the IRGC do you believe are in Canada right now?
Look, right now there are about 28 that are going, that have been deemed to be inadmissible, that are going through a process of removal, and some of them are going through the Immigration Refugee Board. There is due process that essentially will determine if they're eligible to stay here or not. I want to, so if I may, so 700, the number that is being used, is a number that is not substantiated. That is an allegation that there's 700 people that are here. The details have not, as far as I know, have not been provided to CBSA. What I will say is that CBSA has reviewed over 18,000 applications and sought admissibility on those, and they are satisfied that those individuals are admissible. They are investigating currently 28 that are going through different stages of removal. One has already been removed, and others, once the process is complete, will be removed from here. On top of that, as you're aware, we listed Iran as a state sponsor of terror. We listed the IRGC as a terrorist entity within the criminal code. We have sanctioned over 200 Iranian officials. We have over 230 cancellation of visas relating to membership in the IRGC. So we're taking concrete steps, and I want to assure Canadians that members of the IRGC cannot live in Canada in peace, and they will be removed. They will be deemed inadmissible. They will go through the process that we have, the legal process and due process that exists, but let's make no mistake, they will be removed from here.
Are you frustrated by the length of that process, which can be a decade, over a decade, right?
We listed the IRGC in 2024. So this is under 2 years, and we've already made removals. We will continue to work this through our system, and I'm absolutely certain that our system of justice and our system of law, which is grounded in the rule of law, will prevail, and those who are inadmissible will be removed.
Did your government send the wrong message by getting rid of the special representatives?